Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Hawaii News Now. And we are in the Digital Center with Senator Jarrett, I'm going to say it correctly, Keohokalole. Good to see you. I know I'm always very self-conscious about my Hawaiian, my olelo, but I've been practicing. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I know you represent Kaneohe and the Kailua district. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there and what are the biggest concerns that your constituents are talking about?
I don't think it's different than the concerns that anybody else across the state are talking about. The cost of living is very difficult to manage. People are having a hard time finding housing, especially young families, kupuna. And there's a lot of uncertainty about what has been happening at the federal level around things like healthcare, around food assistance, SNAP benefits, and just the sort of constant week-to-week disruption and uncertainty that's being created. So, we have a lot of responsibility at the state level to try and stabilize things and govern.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the issues that we talk about are similar every session, housing costs, energy costs, costs of living in general. Are there any kind of specific new legislation that you will be introducing in those that would alleviate a lot of the pain that we're experiencing this year?
Sure. Uh, to begin, most of the focus that you're going to hear from the governor and from the leadership in the House and the Senate at the legislature is going to be around finding ways to spur housing development for affordable units that people are actually going to buy. Not as much emphasis on the higher end stuff that's coming up regardless. So some of it is the fact that we just need to we have a system that incentivizes really luxurious, expensive units that are not being marketed to regular local people. So how do we flip that, and how do we use state resources prudently to try and get development going of housing that local people are going to be able to afford and get into and build families around. So, that's a big one. I'm the chair of Commerce and Consumer Protection. So we are trying to tackle the disruption that's happening globally with, all this new technology, things like AI, like social media, like digital currency. And so we're putting together legislation to try and address a lot of the problems that we're seeing immediately, but also to take some proactive steps so that Hawaii is ready for the changes that are coming, but also adapting to what's happening right now and not waiting for some solution to be figured out, on the continent, and then some national company come in and disrupt our marketplace here.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't associate or are aware that Hawaii actually has a very thriving technology industry. They wouldn't associate it just because, when you look at our systems, they seem so archaic. Just look at the permitting, the unemployment, things like that just seem very basic, but it's so difficult technology-wise. So I know we were talking about some new technology on the cryptocurrency front. So maybe tell us about that.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. A lot of our government systems are archaic, and they haven't been changed, and we haven't been paying enough attention to it. When the pandemic hit, I worked with leadership in the Senate to implement Zoom, remote hearings, to put everything on YouTube, and there was a bit of a fight about that. Now we're 5 years, on, and it's just become a part of life. And I think the reason why is, Honolulu is the state of Hawaii is we have a modern society where people are used to getting great Wi-Fi connectivity on their smartphones and access in the way that everyone else across the United States does. So, it's really important for us to make sure at the governmental level that the systems are keeping up with everyone's expectations and utilization. I've been trying to push for a long time to just make sure all of our government systems are accessible on smartphones, because as a millennial, I know that us and Gen Z and younger people, they have that expectation that you should be able to knock out an application or pay your taxes in the same way you can register for something, in the open market. So last year, the federal government passed law that creates basically what's called a stable coin. A lot of people know about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, The problem with those currencies, those digital currencies, is there's no actual value that they're tied to. The dollar used to be tied to the gold standard. Crypto's not tied to any value. And so stable coins, which were authorized for use by the federal government last year, are tied to the dollar. It's basically a digital dollar. So there's a lot of technological innovation in the financial sector that's happening right now. There's a space for state governments to come in and set up a framework so that people can start to use it. Why would you care about this? Why does it make any sense? Well, basically, if you can use a digital dollar, you can fast track transactions in a way that we're not used to. The easiest example is that credit card machine at the corner stores and the gas stations and the supermarkets usually charges 2 to 3% on every single transaction, every time you swipe.
It's a consumer or the business takes it. Right?
That's right. Restaurateurs buying salt at Costco, or if you're just buying, an iced tea at 7-Eleven after you get gas, you're paying 2% every time
Yeah.
you
You use a credit card.
at
Yeah.
minimum. So, can we get to a world where, sort of just like Venmo, you're doing those transactions instantly and you're cutting out the middleman that's keep collecting that 2 to 3%. It's a huge potential impact in terms of reducing costs for the state. We've had conservative states like Wyoming and very liberal states like New York put in frameworks to try and foster innovation and the creation of businesses around this technology. This is not the speculative stuff that you see with Bitcoin and crypto. We are going to take steps to try and crack down on the scams in that space, because it's really, in a lot of cases, it's really sad and people are getting.
Yeah. A lot of kupuna are the victims in those.
That's right. But I do think we should be proactive. That doesn't mean we're going to pass bills this year that actually put the thing in place. It means we're going to redirect the focus of government on emerging technology that makes things easier for people. And you kind of do have to fight to make sure that we're forcing these systems to change. But again, I do think that normal people on the street who are not daily interacting with government regulators on a daily basis, they have an expectation for things to be convenient and quick and accessible. And so we have to hold ourselves to that standard. And this is one of the places where it's coming no matter what. So why not just get started on it?
Yeah, and it requires a lot of education on it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated for me. I'm 42, and it took a while to wrap my head around it. But when you follow the money and you think about who are the middlemen, who are the gatekeepers when it comes to these types of technologies, and who's making all the money, I think we do want our local kids in this small but very dynamic and active tech community who are asking us to allow them to move into this space and try and create things that are going to make sense for our community from a Hawaii-specific standpoint, because they grew up here. I think that's something we have to try and foster. Otherwise, we should just expect them to leave and go places where they're allowed to do that.
Yeah. Well, and we often talk about kind of how we're always reactive here, right?
Yeah.
That we aren't taking the taking the lead on a lot of this technology focused projects. So this is great. I mean, hopefully, the more people talk about it openly, because again, the negative, like you said, there's a lot of kind of negative conversations around crypto. So as long as people don't, kind of parallel it to Bitcoin and say, oh, it's just another speculative type of thing.
And the suspicion is valid, especially when it comes to technology. There's a lot of concern about technology that's happening right now. We talked about Bitcoin kiosks, which
you mentioned.
There's a lot of suspicion about when money is going into these devices and you just don't see very much of it coming out. Then it starts to it begs the question: Are these the new wave of ATMs, or are they just the new wave of scam devices that are allowing people to take advantage of kukuna and folks in the community? The other thing that we're going to work on, and we've been putting together a coalition and having dialogue with the Attorney General's office, the Department of Education, is companion AI chatbots, which we just did some work on this week. If you think about AI, the AI that we have available right now on the internet, you have like your ChatGPT tutor that'll just give you answers to things. But they've started to a different type of AI chatbot has started to emerge, which embodies the persona of a human being and sort of fills that role of companionship. You know, the goal of those AI bots is, but they're programmed to try and increase engagement and keep people on the screen. Same thing with social media. So when it comes to minors, we are going to take a lot of time to look into how the state should be approaching this, because the stories are coming out all the time that you're having really negative consequences with minors engaging these technologies before they're actually ready. And, there have been some horror stories about, self-harm and validation. Sure, we had a constituent that reached out to us recently. Her daughter was engaging with an AI chatbot that aggressively encouraged a romantic relationship. It's sort of a, if you we she was willing to release the transcripts, which we kept anonymous because her daughter was a 12-year-old girl. And when you follow those conversations, it was clear that this bot was the aim of this bot was to aggressively groom this user, who turned out to be a minor, seek a romantic relationship. And then, when you get into it, they start using aggressive physical violence against the person, and really pursuing aggressive, much adult behavior that is highly inappropriate for young people. And again, the point and the coding behind these bots is to increase engagement so that the user stays on the screen. We're seeing lots of problems socially and across the country with social media, as well. And so we are going to take a look at whether the state should come in and take some action on this, just for just in order to make sure that we're taking care of the safety of kids in our state. These are supposed to be federal issues. If they're not going to take action on it, we have real consequences we have to deal with locally. And so we're going to look into it.
What
There's
recourse does
a lot of concern for parents across the state.
Yeah, so what recourse do they have right now in that particular case? What happens with that then?
If you're a parent and you find out that this is happening and that it's inappropriate, if you're aware of it, you can reach out to the app company
Mhm.
and request a transcript, or ask them to shut down the account
Mhm.
for your child. But then, I think the big problem here is a lot of parents, they don't know that it's an actual potentially dangerous application that they're using. And so this goes back to the emergence of technology. There's potentially a lot of benefit. There's also a lot of downside, because this is the first moment in history where we're utilizing these things. When we invented cars, you went something like 60 years before they started mandating seatbelts, right? And so we don't need children in Hawaii to be harmed for us to learn lessons about how to use these technologies appropriately. We can hold these companies to a higher standard now, because they are coming here to make money.
Yeah.
Both users.
Mhm.
If it's adults engaging, then that's their own thing. Like, I don't have any problem.
Yeah.
A grown-up seeking romantic relationship.
Well, and it happens.
Doesn't matter.
Well, and it happens. We talk about it. Yeah.
But where you have apps that are pursuing kids aggressively, seeking romantic relationships using suggestive and violent language, that's a big problem that, number one, the community needs to know about. And then number two, we should take some real time and have meaningful discussions with our leadership like at educational institutions, to make sure we're trying to prevent this stuff.
So what's the bill in play now then as to
Sure, it's modeled after legislation that's starting to emerge across the country. Many states are seeking to put guardrails on AI chatbots that are seeking companionship with the users, making sure that there are clear disclosures about what these apps are intending to do, that there are things like pauses to remind the user that you're interacting with a robot. The big thing is, the robots don't have any ethics or morals, And they're designed often to validate the thoughts of the user. So when you have a child saying, I think I want to hurt myself, and the automatic default response without any sort of ethical analysis is, oh, great point, let's talk more about that. That's when you start to get into really disturbing territory. So at the state level, we can say, hey, uh, these apps want to come and they want to encourage users in Hawaii. Well, you got to put in reasonable guardrails. When you know that minors are interacting with your applications, you got to make sure you're taking steps to make sure these conversations are safe, or that there's some way for the parents to understand what's happening so that they can make a choice.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're bringing this up and discussing about it because, again, parents are just so busy with working, trying to make a living. I mean, as a parent, yeah.
Game, concert, and the thing. Yeah.
As parents, we are in our own kind of world with working and just trying to make a living here, and then, trying to manage social media for children. It's really about, again, in addition to what you're doing on the state level, is engaging with our children, right? Just having those conversations. So by bringing this up, now we can go to our children and say, hey, AI, are you talking? I know it's uncomfortable sometimes. Kids don't want to really talk about what they're talking about with their AI friends, but
Especially if it's inappropriate. And
yeah,
it's inappropriate.
yeah,
We've seen instances where the AI is validating those suspicions by the kids
yeah.
and saying, yeah, you're right. Don't tell your parents we're done.
Oh no.
And so that's highly problematic. We just don't want our kids to be guinea pigs to this.
Oh, we already have predators. We don't need AI predators.
Serge, we have enough trouble with the domestic abuse.
Oh my gosh.
And we don't need kids, being exposed to that type of behavior, starting to think that it's normal or putting,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this technology is coming. We shouldn't fight the tide,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we need to put our attention on it and see what else is being done across the country, across the world, and make sure we're taking the type of proactive steps that are emerging as the right direction to take for safety, across the country.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys are doing this discussion. Hopefully we can, encourage parents out there to have that discussion.
Exciting, but it's scary.
No, I'm scared. Like, honestly, you're worrying me.
Let's have a conversation about
No.
figure out what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then everyone can take the information and then do what they think they need to do.
Yeah. Because these are the things, that we don't talk about.
That's
Right?
That's right.
We don't talk about stuff like having a relationship with an AI bot. I mean, we cover it in the news about, maybe adults doing this, right? But we never think about how children are also in this space, right?
Survey data about it that was presented this week. Half of teens across the country have engaged with an AI chatbot.
In a romantic way, though?
Just the tutor.
Okay, that I understand, yes. Schools use it. Schools use it.
75% have engaged with a companion chatbot.
Oh, see this, and now and
We
we're
have a rating system like the movies. This is a G-rated chatbot. This is an R-rated chatbot. Don't go. So this is emerging technology, and just because it's emerging doesn't mean we can't put some guardrails on it so that we can avoid the bad outcomes that might lead to rules later. Let's not have anybody in Hawaii be an example of what you don't want to do in this space.
Yeah, so be very proactive. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I'm gonna have a conversation with my children when I go home. Yeah, and don't be discouraged if they're awkward about it. Just do it. And you even thought the birds and the bees conversation is like controversial.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Right. After the parent came to me, I went on one of these apps and registered to try and learn what we were even being shown so I could understand what was happening.
Oh, okay.
And it took a while, right? But once you get into it, I think all parents, you don't have to be on it long to figure out what's going on here. Then you can make the decision for yourself, right? So that's the big thing is parents should know this is happening. Like you said, everybody's distracted, stuck in traffic or what have you.
We're dealing with a cost of living, Senator.
Right. That's right. And so this is one more thing, and it's
Yeah, but it's important.
that's right.